YouTube, what is good? What is going on? Happy early Thursday morning, January the 17th, 2019. Some of these we looked at already last night, like the 356. The Bronco is really just kind of turned into the basically just the resident lot car. I need to get a lot truck for the dealership. I'd like a flatbed pickup, some that could be a shop runner or even like a car hauler type of a deal. But I don't think I want an international. Anyways, today's cars just picked up at auction here. It was repossessed, so we got this here at the lot. Going to be sold at a bargain price. Actually, I take that back. It looks like it already sold. Okay, never mind on that one. Still have the Dodge Dart. I think my price might be a little too high on that one. Should have been gone by now. Surely the Jeep won't stay long. Anyways, enough of my imagination. Wanted to show you guys the latest brainchild. Not that that's saying much, because when my brain gets going, this is the type of stuff you get. Stuff that is, it's artistic, but in the grand scheme of life, I don't know. There is definitely a place in life for art. Art is very important. But in the grand scheme of art, modeling miniatures is probably pretty low on that totem pole. But I enjoy the hell out of doing it. It really suits my main hobby of collecting diecasts really well. And so I've really taken a liking to it. And since doing it, I don't know. I have these like images in my head of what I think would look cool, and then I try to bring it to life as much as I can. It's pretty, you're pretty limited with this scale model stuff. And almost all of it is improvisation, I think is how it's pronounced. But okay, I started building these because I started collecting diecast. Then I started making videos. Then I thought, diecast, I see people making videos and the diecast is really cool, but they're showing them on desktops and countertops, and I would like something a little bit more visual. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a layout. I want to get a diorama. So I looked everywhere. I looked on the internet. I looked at every antique mall I could find. And you can't buy these dioramas. They're not available to purchase. So then the next logical step is, well, I guess I have to make one. And for those of you that are new to the channel, I would encourage you to go back to the beginning of the channel and watch some of those videos to see some of the first dioramas that I made, because I've probably made around 15 or 20 of them now. And anyways, I'm at a point now where I get these ideas in my head. Some of them, like the river, I got from straight up, that is not an original idea. It came straight from Luke Towan. My river is very different than his, but there are many, many, many similarities to them. And so I'm not going to claim this to be my idea. I definitely got it from him. But the garage, or the little auto shop that I just did, that is shipping out to 100 little cars, that's an original idea. Scratch made. Everything on it scratch made except the telephone poles. Even the building. This one, when I made his, I thought, I want to make myself a new one too, because I've had this building for. I got this in May of 2017, and it's yet to be utilized. And so it only took me 2 years, but I finally was like, you know what? While I make him his auto shop, I'm going to make myself a car dealership. And so this is the layout, which, it's already been seen on the channel many times. So now that I have a foundation of the layout, the next general direction to head is how can I detail it. So little fine details make really big differences, like power lines, telephone lines. The next small detail was the sales streamer, which I'll probably make another one. Well, the idea that I had pop into my head last night, I worked on it a little bit tonight. There's still quite a bit to do, but I'm far enough along that you can definitely see what it is. So now remember, when you do these things, you have to improvise. There isn't material made for what you're looking for. So you have to find something that you think will work. So anyways, here it is. This little section over here on the right side of the building, every time I do a video and I watch it back, I'm like, what can I do with that space? And I've sold cars, and when you sell cars, most dealerships have a nice little awning or covered area where the customer takes delivery of the car after they get done in financing. The other thing is that all of the cars have to be washed and detailed before the customer takes delivery. So this was my idea. It's pretty simple, but it's just a little car wash bay with a little garden hose, because this is a buy here pay here. This isn't your run-of-the-mill AutoNation Chevrolet dealership. This is Jose Cuervo's buy here pay here type of a deal. These are cars that probably were used in the commission of crimes, probably repossessed by that guy on that TV show, from someone who stopped making payments on it, that type of thing. Cars that were purchased at auction. I mean, high miles. This thing probably has 210,000 miles on it, but it's okay because the engine was rebuilt at 180, so a lot of life left on it. My point is, a garden hose is perfect for washing a car at a dealership like this. It's a buy here pay here. So yeah, your car's going to get washed with a garden hose. And so that's what I did. I built this little cover, which, measuring in this scale is so hard. I thought 3 inches would be adequate. It's way too high. The roof should really only be up to about there. So that's easy enough to fix. I just need to lop probably an inch off of each post, and then I'll be good to go. But the main visual thing that I was going for was the coiled up garden hose. It's really not easy to do. So I was at Hobby Lobby earlier tonight. They had this piping on sale. It was like 50 cents a yard, and then it was half off. So you get 4 yards for $1, but it's white. So I washed it in green, and this would work so much better for the garden hose because of the texture. It is actually almost the exact texture of a garden hose with the weave design. The problem is the scale. The scale on this it's way too big for a garden hose. Whereas this, from a scale standpoint, is pretty much right on. But it definitely close up doesn't look much like a garden hose. Whereas this one does. But when I had this mocked up, I mean, look at the size of the hose against the car. This is probably a 1. I think this would even be too big for 1 to 43rd scale. I'm thinking probably 1 to 32nd scale is where this is going to probably be best suited. Maybe even larger than that. Maybe even 1 to 24th. So it's a bummer because I got excited about it, especially after I painted it. I was like, man, that actually looks kind of like a garden hose. But then when I had it mocked up, I'm like, that just doesn't work. So I went with the next option, which is this. So this little thread that I used for the sail streamer is basically thread. This is what it is. But for the sail streamer, you can see how it's kind of woven together. I basically took out one strand to get it to be more of a scale size rope. But with the hose, I didn't. I just left it the original size. I gave it a bath in some green water. And then after the bath in green water, I covered it in gloss Mod Podge to give it a more of a plasticky look. And I don't know how I feel about it. Up close, it definitely doesn't look great. But, from a little bit of a distance, it kind of makes sense. So now, the next feature that needs to be modeled is water. That is going to be fun, and it shouldn't be too hard. So stay on the lookout for that, because I'm going to model water coming out of the nozzle of that hose, and I'm going to model some removable water puddles. So yeah, pretty cool stuff that's coming. Stuff that I'm using for that has some pretty strong fumes, so I'm not going to do it tonight. But this was as easy to build as could possibly be. I think probably any human being alive could have made this. Definitely too tall. I'm thinking at least 1 inch off of each post. You know what I didn't factor in? I didn't factor in everything above the columns, because that elevates it another 1/4 inch. But yeah, well, I was going to tip it upside down, but that would mess up the hose, and it was very difficult getting the hose positioned. So I need to paint the little hook that the hose is hanging on. I think, let's see if I can get that in some better light. I'm going to have so much touching up to do on the river from working all this stuff on top of it. It's this whole area underneath this corner is going to be so torn up. But that's okay. I can fix it. Shouldn't be too hard. So, yeah, I'm just not really liking the texture of that hose, but I don't know what else to do or what else to use. I do have some other ideas though. And you got to be careful. One of the things I thought of was some kind of line, like a real thick fishing line, or even a wire would probably work. But you want it to be something that you can manipulate. Like I want it to look like a natural hanging garden hose, and with a metal wire, it's not going to coil. I mean, those are just some of the things you have to factor in, but that's part of the fun of modeling. Is you have to be creative with your build, but you also have to be creative with how you're going to build it and what are you going to use. Like like when you make a layout like this, you can actually buy HO scale fencing. There's a lot of different HO scale fencing that you can get. You can get chain link, you can get picket, split rail. There's all kinds of different fencing that you can buy, but it's more fun to just make it, and it's a lot cheaper. And I've only made 3 different kinds of fences, this being one of them. This is just a standard plank fence. And then on my overpass layout, which is featured on some videos from about 2 months ago, there's a split rail fence and a chain link fence that I made. The chain link fence on that layout is a little bit out of scale. And it just goes back to what I'm talking about. You got to be really cognizant of the materials that you're using. But when I made that, those wooden dowels were the only thing I could find that were close to what I was looking for. The good thing, though, is since doing that, I now know what to use on the next one to get it scaled perfectly. And the material that I'm going to use is metal, so it's going to be more appropriate. It's just like this fence. When I did 100 Little Cars layout, I hadn't thought about washing the wood, so I built the fence and then painted it. And it looks okay, but after I did his and I was working on mine, it dawned on me to make two little bowls of 2 different shades of gray and do half of them one shade and half of them the other. And it's like you get better. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And I still have a long way to go with these layouts, but I feel content when I look back at the layouts that I did back in 2015 when I started making them, and I look at the evolution. It's pretty cool because it's one of the only things I've ever done in my life where the progress of it has been documented. So you can actually go through and watch those videos. The very first one I made was the best one that I made for a long time. The second one wasn't nearly as good. The third and fourth ones weren't nearly as good. That first one was a good one. And then about a year ago, about 14 months ago, I made my first one where I didn't have flat terrain. So it was the first one where I had like hillsides, and it was also the first one where I had a water feature. So that kind of catapulted me into the builds that are a little bit more complex. And then with this river build, this is my first build using foam. And foam it's so, like, I strongly recommend using foam. I've done the plaster cloth terrain, and depending on your build, that might be a better application than foam. But I find foam to be, first of all, it's a lot lighter, and these can get pretty heavy. So it's a lot lighter, and it's just so much easier to work with, and it's so much easier to manipulate and get it into the shape that you're going for. But the cool thing about this one is the actual ground part of it is one of the most simple layouts I've done, whereas this one, the ground is probably the most complex ground that I've done, because there's a lot going on with that terrain. You just got a lot going on. A lot of dirt, rocks, water, roads, and then you have all the grasses and bushes. With this, 95% of it is this cement, and then just a little bit of vegetation around the end. But if I could give you 2 pieces of advice for building a layout, if you want to get the best results, the material that you use is far more, it's going to impact the end result much more than your skill set. So, in other words, take 2 people. One of them's never made a layout. One of them's made 100 layouts and knows what he's doing. If you give the guy who's never made one all of the right materials, and you give the guy who's made a bunch of them just a bunch of crap, the guy with the right materials is going to get probably as good of a result, if not better. So 2 things I would say to use for your dirt. Well, I see a lot of people making layouts, and they'll put, okay, I want my grass over here I want dirt, over here I want a road, and it's like divided up like that. That's not natural. So get grout, use grout for your dirt, and then on your layout, put grout everywhere on the layout where there isn't going to be a paved road. So anywhere you're going to have grass or dirt roads or water, put the grout down. Then what you do is you build up your vegetation on top of the dirt. There's dirt underneath all of this. So then you put your grass on top of the dirt. It gives you a much more natural look. And this isn't the best example of dirt and grass, but you definitely want dirt underneath all your grass, in my opinion. And the other thing is, spend the $50. If you really want to get serious about making these, spend the $50 and get the static grass applicator, because it's going to make all the difference in the world at how realistic your layout's going to look. So the 2 big things, though: use grout for your dirt. Don't use dirt. Don't use the Woodland Scenics gravel that Hobby Lobby sells. Don't use that. Use grout. If you absolutely feel like you have to use dirt, go to your backyard and get it out of your ground and sift it, and only use the fine dusty powder, because otherwise, if it's too big, too coarse, it's going to throw the scale of the layout off. So those are some tips I would recommend for buildings. You have to be careful, because A lot of HO scale buildings will work. This one just happens to work. Doesn't work great, but it works enough to where it's believable. I've seen car dealerships, buy here, pay here dealerships, probably a fourth of this size relative to the size of the cars. Um, but not all HO scale buildings are compatible with, because you have to remember, these are S scale cars. 1 to 64 scale cars, S scale. Okay, HO scale, 1 to 87th. So it is a much different size. But you can find buildings that work. The gas station on the overpass layout, it works. That one barely works. That one is really pushing it for believability, but it does work. I mean, that garage, you can fit one of these S scale cars in that garage, no problem. The size of the gas pumps relative to the size of the cars, it's buyable. I think it's believable. But I've seen a lot of HO scale buildings that would not work on a layout like this for S scale cars. And so that's kind of my next thing, is building my own buildings. And I've done that once, so I'm sure I'll be doing that more. And as I do that more, I'm sure my ability will increase. I'm sure my ability to make curbs and sidewalks will get better. The one thing I'd really also like to start working on is my paved roads, because I just have done them the way I've done them, and I haven't really thought much about it. And I do think my paved roads look better than a lot of other paved roads that I see, but they don't look as good as they could. The biggest mistake people make with paved roads is they paint them black. That's like the number one mistake if you're going to do a paved road. Don't paint it black. There aren't black roads unless it's a road that was literally just paved. Then it'll be black for one summer, and then it's going to be gray. So don't be afraid to use light gray colors. I mean, I use my main go-to color for the road is gray sky. The texture of the paved road is a totally different subject. I know that's not a great view, but see, there's some complexity there with the terrain and the water. Anyways, for the texture of the paved road, what works really well for me is drywall spackle. And in fact, that's pretty much what I use as my base on all my layouts. So this entire scene is the first application on it before I put paint and dirt and water, is I put drywall spackle. I just spread it on there like icing a cake. Then once it dries, you sand down the paved road, and then you just paint the entire thing. And the reason you paint it is so that if you're putting dirt on and you get a spot real light, none of the white shows through. And then once you get it painted, then you start applying your earth. It's not really hard to do at all. I'm surprised more guys haven't done it, because I get so many people that want to. They talk to me about, how do you do it? What do I need to get? I want to do it. I want to do it, just haven't gotten around to it. Want to do it, just don't have time to do it. They don't take all that much time, and they're not hard to do. As far as the expense of it, It can be expensive. The initial investment is going to be expensive, but once you make those first purchases of that big tub of grass and your scenic glue and all your paint and all that stuff, you can make 10 10 layouts. The initial purchase will be enough supplies to make 10 between 10 and 20 layouts. So it gets really cheap after that. Like, I don't think I spent more than on these two layouts. If you take this building out of it, I probably don't have more than $5, $10 in these. If you don't count the boards. The boards were this board, it's a 4 square foot board. It's 2 feet by 2 feet. It's like $7 at Home Depot. And then this one I got at Walmart. I think it was $5. So if you don't count the boards, there's no way I spent more than $10 on both of these combined. And it's just because I had all the stuff. You know, like the trees. I don't even buy trees anymore. I just find these branches outside and make my own tree. And I think they look they don't look great, but they look a lot better than these pre-made trees, in my opinion. I don't know, really don't know why I just went on that whole rant about building dioramas, but hopefully you can take some of that information. Hopefully it'll help you. If you want to make one of these and you have questions, feel free to ask. Just find me on Instagram, Heavy Metal 164. It's the same moniker. I'd love to get to 2,000 followers, so you should follow me on Instagram anyways. But if you have questions, just find me on Instagram. I'm happy to help you. The only thing that I ask is that if you ask me questions, if you say, hey, I really want to do this, what do I need to do to get started? The only thing I ask is that you act on it. Don't just talk about it and then never actually do it. I'll tell you how to get started, but then you got to go out and you got to actually get started. Because I want to see what you do. I want to see more people doing this. I would love to see these sold, available to collectors, you know. Because honestly, if stuff like this was available to purchase, I never would have got into making them. I just would have bought one, and I probably would have customized it a little bit. You know, like this building, it didn't look like that when I got it. I weathered it. So everybody's going to put their own little touch on it, but I think a lot of you will find that making the layout is as fun or possibly more fun than collecting the diecast. That's what I have found. And I am an avid collector and enthusiast of diecast. I love collecting diecast. I love cars. But I have found making these layouts it's a second hobby to me, and I love the fact that my two favorite hobbies go together. Because I can't think of any two other hobbies that would really go together like that. So I think here's my idea, and I'll end the video on this. It's just an idea that I have because, excuse me, making these layouts, they take up a lot of space. And you know, the thing is, I'll make one like I made the river, and I got bored with it before I even finished it, just from making videos, because it's a cool backdrop for diecast videos. But then it gets old, and then I'm like, I want to build another one, so we have a new one, and then that's how this comes about. in 3 weeks, I'll be bored of this one and I'll be on to the next. So that's why this is smaller, because I can't keep doing 4 square foot layouts. So then I had an idea. Why don't I make one of the 4 square foot, and I'll build it out, all of it except for a chunk exactly this size, 15 by 12. I'll leave a 15 by 12 portion completely unfinished. And then I'll just do terrain, maybe some hills, maybe a stream, maybe a paved road, trees, whatever. And then on the unfinished part, I'll build these little 15 by 12 scenes like this, to where it can be changed out, you know? That way the background, there's always like trees and hills and stuff like that in the background, but I can change out the foreground with, a car dealership, or maybe a gas station, or maybe like an off-road trail, stuff like that. Cuz I'll tell you, when this gets utilized by itself and doesn't have that background with those trees, it's not going to look as good. And that day is coming. But I did leave just enough room to add a few trees without getting too crazy. I think there's room over here too. So that can be done. So, all right, well, wow, 37 minutes. Jeez. I hope that you all enjoyed the video. Happy die casting. Put one foot in front of the other and get going on your layout. I'm telling you, you will not regret it. It's very, very good therapy too. I've had, the last year and a half, I've had these really bad anxiety attacks, like to the point where it's put me in the hospital. This is one of the best things you can do for therapy, for just clearing your mind. I'm telling you, if you're on the fence, if you're one of those people that is teetering on making one of these, go Nike on it. Just do it. I promise you, your cars will look so much better on a diorama than they look on your desk, or in your Carney case, or on your shelf. Wherever you put them, they will look much better on a layout. Even if it's a crappy layout, they still look better. They look better on crappy layouts, in my opinion, than they do on desktops. That's just what I think. So, all right, you guys all have a great night. Have a good Thursday. Happy hunting. I'll holler at you at the next die-cast-orama video. Wash that car, sir. You missed a spot. Oh, by the way, I did do that tire swap. Looks a lot better, in my opinion. They still look a little big, but not as bad as it did. The tires that were on it look awesome on this thing. That white lettering added quite a bit. All right, peace out.